Welcome back to Those Amigos. This is part 2 of our big break conversation.
Big break.
And get ready, because we're about to get very colorful here. So, of course, I had done all the little things, right? Like, I played like, this flashback young kid in Four Corners. I'd done a little thing on Disney Channel called Amba Macamba, where like I pop up in a little box in the bottom left. And I'm like, hey, Amba, how tall is a giraffe? And like, so I've done little things like that, but I did some regional Sony commercial for a camera that was only releasing in Japan. Like I never saw these things, you know?
Right.
And then finally, he's like, I'm going to send you this pilot audition. We don't have the script, right? All you get is these 3 little pages. And I was like, this is it? I just got to do this scene? And he's like, yeah. He goes, okay, easy money.
Yeah.
So I asked my dad if he can take me to this audition. Well, and some of you who have read An American Story, Everyone's Invited, which is my memoir, you will remember this story. My dad had to borrow money from the neighbor because we didn't have gas money for him to drive me to this audition.
Oh, wow.
So he took me to this audition in Studio City, across the street from CBS Radford, where Debbie Gross was the casting director at the time. And I went in and auditioned. And, she's like, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to bring you back tomorrow. And I want you to have a little more fun with your character, just have a little more fun with that. And I was like, okay. So I went back that night. And, I said, Dad, they want me to come back tomorrow. I was like, okay, cool. And I'm playing around with my little sister, and I make this voice. And she starts laughing. And I'm like...
You make a noise.
I make a voice.
Oh, boy.
Like a little high-pitched kind of innocent voice. And she's like, she starts laughing. And then I was like, okay, well, let me combine accents from different countries and make it an accent that, that you can't even phrase where he's from, And as soon as I said the word yes, I knew, oh, wait a minute. I think this might just work, And so I think to me, I was like, all right, let me see you. So I went the next day and I combined accents from different countries and I played with this. And I came in audition for the producers at the time. I had no idea who they were. I'll tell you who they were later.
Yeah.
They're like, there was like a moment of silence while they register. And then there was an explosion of laughter. And so I thought, oh man, I really messed up. I really messed up.
Oh, you thought they were laughing at you and not
I messed
with
up.
You, or?
I messed up, Freddy, because I said this thing. I auditioned with something very different than I had done it before.
Yeah.
I took this like Hail Mary, and she said, "Have fun with it." I went too far. I had too much fun with it.
Right.
And then immediately they're like, "What?" And then they're like, and then they started laughing. But so I was like, I couldn't translate that. I was like, I messed up. So I went home, and finally, I get a phone call from the studio again. They're like, hey, they want you to go to 20th Century Fox. I was like, oh, I'm getting another audition. All right. So I told my dad. My dad had to borrow money again from the neighbor to drive me to 20th Century Fox this time.
The same studio?
Yeah.
That I went to?
Yes.
Oh, man, that's mind-blowing. Wow.
Bro,
that's crazy.
That's what I'm telling you. That's why I said, you walk into that gate, and there's this magnetic thing where anything can happen for you.
I never put that together.
Yes.
Man, that we were at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I enter, my dad gets a little money, drives me over there. And, when you are auditioning for a TV show, they make you sign a contract before you get the part.
Yeah.
And you read the contract and you don't understand what those letters are, and like ultimately it says that I was going to make $15,000 for the pilot.
Yeah.
And $10,000 per episode.
Yeah, like,
I am like, right?
Yeah.
So I told my dad, I said, Dad.
Yeah.
But it was such a ridiculous paragraph in that contract that I looked at my dad, we're obviously not getting this because it makes no sense. Like we don't get this kind of stuff, right? Like it's just, that's like more money. Even if I just get the pilot, that's more money than we made in the year.
Did the contract say how many episodes you would do?
No, just it said all produced, or I was supposed to be a one of the regulars.
Because I'm wondering if you did the math in your head. Were you like,
No, I didn't
were you
know.
like 10,000 an episode?
No, 'cause I didn't know.
Times like
I didn't know. I knew once they got the pickup, that's when I was like, but so basically, I go to my dad. I'm like, Dad, could you imagine if I get this show right now?
Right.
My dad looks at me. He's thinking we're not getting this part, but he's like, Mijo, if you get it, I done very good. If you don't get it, I done very good. And, I always say this. My dad always sounded like he was drunk. And, but he wasn't drinking at the time. And so I auditioned, and I enter the room, and it's Peter Roth, president of Fox at the time, Bonnie and Terry Turner.
Yeah.
I mean, legendary writers and head writers of SNL at the time, Saturday Night Live. They created Coneheads, Wayne's World, the Brady Bunch movie, and on and on and on. I mean, the guys were like legendary comedic, and they also had created The Rock from the Sun at the time.
Yeah.
And then it was like Mark Brazil, and then it was, the other executives of Fox, and I had no idea who they were. And I come in there, and I do my scene.
Right.
And then I go
with the voice, with the new
Brother goes, and I just go, what did I say? What was the one line that brought the house on? Oh, it was like, so it is about whore. And bro, there was an explosion of laughter in that room. And again, I thought I messed it up. It couldn't translate to me that they were laughing that hard at something I did.
Right.
That I was like, oh, and they were laughing so hard in the room that I couldn't hear the casting director. So because I had it memorized, and I would just wait for her lips to be done. And then I would say my line, and then they would be laughing through her line. And then I would say my line, and they would be laughing through her line. So I was just reading her lips, and I was like so attentively looking at her lips. And so I thought to myself, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I'm definitely messed it up, because I couldn't even hear her. But it added to the chaos of my character when he was trying to comprehend, and I was like so wide-eyed that it almost created character traits. And I went home, and my agent calls me at the time, and he said, Wilmer, they want you to come back tomorrow. And I looked at my dad, and I looked at my family. There's the time where you can pick up a line in the other room. And
You got on the other phone.
And everybody's listening from different phones in the rooms in the house, in our little tiny little house in Van Nuys, California. And they're on the phone, and they're like, why don't you come back tomorrow?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I got a call back. And then he says, and they want you to come back the day after that, and the day after that. And the day after that, and the day after that, and we're all crying and screaming, and we're like, Jesus Christ, like what just happened, dude?
Wow.
And honestly, cue it like a movie. I look outside the window, dude, and our neighbor's American flag is waving.
Oh man, wow.
And that was the moment where I said, this is why. That's what this country affords all of us, and I was relentlessly knowing that I needed to pay it back.
Wow.
In that moment, as soon as I saw that flag wave, I said that's what everybody talks about. That's what everybody writes movies about. That's what, it's this called American dream thing that it's American dream that could happen for those who are willing to dance, who want to get in the dance floor and want to get out there and try, And dude, I made a promise to myself that moment. I was like, if I'm going to do this, I have to be the best. Everything that comes out of my mouth has to be the funniest thing that anybody has ever heard. And I just relentlessly would look at every line and think about it like, talking about Keanu Reeves, like Neo in The Matrix. I'm like, I'll move this comma here and bring this period there. That will make it super awkward and offbeat. And then I will play with the comedic cadence of the actual lines. And so every time I deliver a line, people wouldn't know how you make that choice.
Right.
How you come to that choice? And I was really thinking like a different type of creature on TV.
You were creating a character before you kind of really knew what creating a character was.
And it
right?
was based on the promise that like I was not gonna mess it up.
Yeah.
That I was gonna just appreciate this opportunity, and I was gonna bring all of myself into that.
Yeah.
And it's the audacity of thinking like whatever I have in me is what this character needs.
Yeah.
It's like I got it, you know. And I don't even think my co-stars at the time even understood, you know, like what this character was. At the time, they thought, it was like, well, it's like the foreign kid with the accent. I guess I don't know if he's like a.
Yeah.
They didn't know if I was a serious regular or if I was like something like a.
How were they when they first heard it? Were they like?
They were like, this is ridiculous, right?
Were they like,
especially
what's this guy
Topher. Topher thought I was brilliant. Topher gave me so much love and so much. Like they looked at me and they were like,
yeah.
Topher's like, you're either weird.
Yeah.
Like a weirdo.
Yeah.
Or you might just be a brilliant.
Yeah. It's one or the other. It's
one or the other. It can't be both. It can't be both.
There's nowhere in between.
I was betting more on the weird.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I let him believe it was brilliant.
Yeah.
You know? And I think at the time that part became this anthem for me, you know, and starting my career, you know, and I was asking you, what did it feel like on set? But for me, I had a live audience.
Oh, yeah.
So imagine they go, okay, action, and you say your first line.
Yeah. Was that scary?
I was
to do it
shitting
in front
bricks.
of it? Yeah.
It was so scary. Because, you know, I had done theater, so I was like, oh, I'm not afraid of that. But then I was like, oh, that's 230 people on that stand.
Yeah.
The trick was not to play for the audience in the soundstage. The trick was not to perform it for the people in the audience. The trick was to perform it for the people at home.
Right.
So whatever I did on that screen, I needed to tell it to the people at home, right? Which prevented me from going too far to try to make the people in the audience laugh, which is a trap for sitcoms.
Yeah.
You think you're playing for the people that are laughing there in front of you.
Did you learn that through trial and error, or like how did you learn how to calibrate how far you go?
I think I was bringing my fear from not listening, not hearing the casting director in the audition, and I was hanging by every word that the other actor was saying.
Right.
Which allowed me to stay here and like really engage here. And so I didn't have to play for them because I was just like, I got to get my lines right.
Yeah.
I got to say them like this, and then I got to listen to you. And so it allowed me to be here. So it was like this contained madness.
Yeah.
You know, that I didn't have to play that colorful out loud. And so you know, my first line, I remember, you know, the scene was, you know, it was Topher Grace, Laura Prepon, and Mila Kunis, and we were at the Hub, and we were having like, you know, the Hub is like the little hangout, little diner, and we're playing, you know, like pinball and whatever, and I think Mila, Jackie's character, gets up and goes up to Donna, Laura Prepon's character, and says, Donna, I have to go to the bathroom. He goes, okay. He goes, well, you have to come with me or something. Like, she's like, I'm not going to go alone.
Yeah.
Because girls go to the bathroom together, right? And she goes, oh, okay, he goes. And I look at that, and then I go all the way up to Eric Foreman, Topher Grace, and I say, Eric, I'm what is it? Let me restart again so I really know it. Eric, oh yes. So I go up to Topher Grace, who is playing Eric Foreman, and I go, I too must go to the bathroom, Eric. And he's like, that's not how it works with Guys Fest or something, you know. As soon as I said that, the audience was like, same thing like the casting room. Yeah. There was like this pause to them like, oh, that's how he's gonna play it. Oh, they've never seen it because the show's a pilot.
Yeah.
It's never aired. So they're like, oh. Right? It kind of clicked that I was gonna play this foreign exchange student that was gonna say some off the wall stuff. Right. So as soon as every scene came up, all of a sudden like it worked, and it was like this magic thing.
But I think it worked because it was grounded. You know, like you know how like sometimes you see people do characters and they're acting the character. You know, where yours was more grounded. So
Yeah,
so even if it was big, even if it was external, it was grounded.
He believed it.
Yeah, he believed it. So if you believe it, the audience believes it,
Right.
and you weren't performing it. You know, you were doing it. You were living it. You know.
Yeah.
And so I find that sometimes when actors perform it, you know, then you know,
It could be a trap, right? Like sometimes you read the character
yeah.
description and you're like, I gotta play the grumpy guy. So to your point, it's like for me, it was like the more I focus on my scene partners, the more grounded it became. You know, and the funnier it was for the audiences because they were looking at it from a screen as well. You know,
Right.
So I knew that I was like, oh, they're looking at it from a screen if they're not looking at it live. So I'm kind of playing it to the screen too. So that's when I figured out the tone between, you know, theater, TV, and like film. You know, and that dial it really helped me understand more. And that was it, man. That moment was just magical. And all of a sudden, you know, instead of going to the 99-cent stores with my mom, I was taking her to Ralph's.
Yeah. Oh.
Instead of getting, cola, we were getting Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
You know?
What was it like when you guys premiered? Like, so, okay, so you shot the pilot, obviously, right? They see the pilot. You guys didn't shoot the entire season before it premiered, right?
No, we shot probably close to like maybe 5 or 6 episodes before we premiered. We premiered August 28th of 1998. It was on I believe it was a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
No, sorry. It was Sunday nights at 8:30 between The Simpsons and The X-Files.
That's a damn good slot, man.
Yeah, it was massive.
Yeah.
It's a massive time slot. But we weren't a hit right away. You know, it was like took a while to build. And The Simpsons and The X-Files were really mad at us because, you know, they thought that we weren't leading them well. And, you know, most of those shows have been on for multiple seasons, you know. So they really were trying to blame us. In fact, like, I think even The Simpsons were so mean to us. They did an episode where they did a montage of, like, the behind the alleyway of these stores, 99-cent stores that were, like, tossing, stuff that didn't sell through the trash, right? And then they go to like 59-cent stores, and then they go to like 20-cent stores, or like 10-cent stores, and the 10-cent store was throwing 70 show mugs.
Oh, wow.
In the trash. So like they were just like so bitter, you know. And we outlived all those. We did 8 seasons within 200 episodes. And you know, we were averaging 19, 20 million people a week, you know, and you know, they were averaging 21, 22. So they looked at us as like, well, we're dropping millions because of these guys.
Right.
So as soon as they moved us to they moved us to Wednesday, then they moved us to Mondays, then they moved us back to Wednesdays, and that could have killed us. But all we did is we gathered fans from every night. And all of a sudden, by season 3, we were the number one comedy.
Season 3. So is that when it really started to, like when did you finally notice that it was cooking, right? Like that, or that people were being receptive to it?
It was hard because I was still living I was still going to high school.
Yeah.
And, you know, kids in high school have a way to make you feel like...
You were still physically going to high school?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, we would be on 2, off 1, on 3, off 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. And so during those off weeks, I would go back to regular high school.
Oh, wow.
And I was finishing up my senior year of high school at that point. And, you know, kids could be so mean.
Yeah.
So they would look at me and they would come up to me like, why is your hair like that? And why do you sound like that? Why do you sound so stupid? He goes, why aren't you the cute one? You're like not even the cute one on the show. Like forget that you got a TV show.
Right.
Forget that you learned how to speak English 4 years ago.
Wow.
Forget that you're making some money.
Jeez.
Like man. It was literally like you're not even the cool one.
Wow.
You know? And so high school didn't make me feel special about.
And that was season 1?
Yeah.
And so did it start to cook season? When was it like just
season 3?
That's when it really...
Season 3 was when we were household characters, and people, I would walk down the street and be like, Fez, you know, it took a while for my character because in real life I look so different. So...
Right, because you had your hair...
Yeah, I was wearing beanies and hats because my hair was like Eric Estrada long.
Right.
You know?
And that was your real hair?
That was my real hair. Huh. Yeah, I was very gifted.
Right. It blow dried really well.
Yeah, every day. But yeah, but my co-stars were like, I'd be standing next to my co-stars, and they're like, "Hey, you guys are awesome. You know, make sure you tell Fez I say what's up," and I'd be standing next to them.
Really?
Yeah.
Just because your hair looked that different?
Yeah. Also, I carry myself very different. I didn't stand the way I stand. I didn't do my mouth the way I did when I talked. I mean, I created all these things that made him a different human.
And you didn't speak like that.
And I didn't speak like that character, right? So people couldn't recognize me, which it was funny. We actually worked to my advantage because I was fine. I wasn't looking for people to recognize me, you know, anything. I was just happy to be working.
Yeah. I'll bet you all those kids you went to high school with by season 3.
Oh, they all knew it.
They were like, damn it.
They all knew it now. No, man, they all knew it now. You know, they're all like, I always knew.
I always knew.
Yeah, that's great. Well,
I always knew.
That's great. That's great.
But I hope you realize what I mean. Your character is gonna go down in like television history. You know, as one of the most iconic comedic characters of all time.
Oh,
you know,
thank you, man.
And isn't that wild? That was like your first pilot, your first big television show, and right from the jump, you create this like iconic television character. I mean,
it's wild, man. It's wild. And to your point, the only thing that I hoped that every day of my career, that I never would forget, you know, that ingredient that was in me back then, that would allow me to be that free, to create something that bold at a time where bold was not rewarded.
Yeah.
Right? To dare to be such a like, you know, sometimes I look at auditioning as like, okay, if you break it down in 100% of actors, right? You have an audition for a part. 50% of the actors are going to make the same choice.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
40% of actors are gonna think they're clever, and they're gonna be like, I'm gonna do the opposite.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's 10%, and you break it into like 7% of them are gonna do something that's not that or this, and it's gonna be an alternative.
Right.
Right? And then 3% of those actors do or make a choice that is so drastically innovative, that elevates that character against, you know, the perception of the writer and director, and contributes on a level that makes that character soar.
Yeah.
You know? And so the difference between a working actor and the guys that, you know, that 3%, you know, you see them sitting at the Oscars.
Yeah.
You know? There's just something. There's just this thing. You know, and I attribute it to, you know, that wondrous thing, you know? You know, can you stay wondrous, you know, as long as you possibly can? Can you look at every character and be like, instead of asking yourself what they want, can you ask yourself a question? If I had to play this character for 8 years and 200 episodes,
right,
what would be the take that I would have the most fun playing every day?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the one that wins. That's the one that wins. It's not like what your perception is of what they want. It's what you know it's in your strength to deliver. And sometimes you go against your strength because you're too concerned about wanting them to approve you.
Right.
You know, how do you feel about that? What do you think about that?
I'm all for taking chances, you know, like I feel like I come from, I think we come from a generation of actors, right? We come out of like the 70s and 80s actors, right? Where people were creating characters, right? You know, we came up watching Al Pacino and De Niro and Dustin Hoffman and all these people who were Gary Oldman, you know, all these people who were like really creating characters and creating voices and the way they stood and, you know, all of the stuff that encompassed your character, right? So I just think that that's a you know, because we come from that generation, we feel freer and we feel bolder to do that. I don't know if this generation is necessarily, you know, that or maybe the mindset is different now. But I felt like a lot of the stuff that
do you think the training is different? Because I talk about, I would say, you know, to reframe the 3%. The 3%, what they do really well, is they turn it all off.
They
they turn it all off, the choices,
Uh-huh.
right? And they just like allow themselves to just flow through the words, you know, in almost effortless. Like some of them make it look so easy, right? What do you think?
I think that if you look at the landscape of TV and film now, right? It's you know, man, like the character actor per se is not as prevalent as it used to be, you know, and so because it's not, it's just the newer generation just doesn't. They don't relate to it, you know, because that's not necessarily what our industry is looking for, you know.
And you think it has something to do with your inspirations or like who inspire you from the beginning to actually say like, oh, we're, you know, oh, that's possible. Like that is something like what is that Mount Everest? What is the example of Mount Everest that you see first? So you go, I want to climb higher than that. You think it has something to do with tie with like the inspirations of today? Or like where do you draw inspiration today?
You know, I think.
And you know, I'm going to hold you there because I think this is a great question to answer for the next episode.
For the next episode.
Yes, for
as
the
we
next
talk
episode.
Characters in.
Yeah, and individuals
we
and
do.
people and moments that inspire us to kind of stride a little higher. And how did that translate in a universal way too? But by the way, thank you so much for offering all that, you know, personal stuff with you know you're walking into 20th century fox. I didn't know we had that in common.
Crazy, man.
Yeah,
we got fincas in common. We have fox in common.
Man, exactly.
Jeez,
it's insane. But I want to thank everybody for listening to Those Amigos and for watching Those Amigos. If you are watching Those Amigos, and you know, we'll see you on the next episode.
All right.
Wilmer Valderrama,
Freddy Rodriguez. Peace.